Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here. Welcome back to another video for Elden Ring, and in this one I want to give you a quick look at some of the awesome weapon skills in this game. There's a new mechanic this time around whereby you have the ability to use these things called Ashes of War, and you can basically assign them to your weapon in order to pull off these cool weapon abilities. You have to put your weapon into two-handed mode and you then hold down L2 and you perform some badass skills. Some of them are more flashy than others, some of them are tied to specific weapons, but some of them you will find as items that you can then freely assign to different weapons to effectively create the playstyle that you want, and they can of course also affect the type of weapon, turning it into like a magic weapon or a physical weapon, things like that. So in this video I want to showcase some of the coolest ones. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. If you have any questions, by all means let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know which ones you like the best. These are definitely super awesome. So first things first, for those of you guys wondering how you encounter these, typically you will either get Ashes of War from defeating some bosses, or sometimes when you're roaming the world you will find these little teardrop scarabs. I like to call them treasure dung beetles, and if you kill them they can also drop Ashes of War. You then go to the Site of Grace, aka the campfire, scroll down to the option, and you can then assign these to the weapons. Again, keep in mind some of them are just tied to a weapon and you can't change them, but sometimes you can assign them. So going through some of the ones we had a chance to check out, we have Ordovis's Vortex on Ordovis's Greatsword. This is a fixed one, you can't change this, it comes on the weapon, but it looks incredibly cool. Basically you just spin your weapon around, slam it down on the ground for some massive damage. Then by default on the Battle Axe you have the Frenzy, which is kind of just like if you play Switch Axe in Monster Hunter, the sort of flurry move where you keep waving the sword. That basically happens with the axe, and you can do this until you have no more FP. One of the really cool ones I got on the Dragon Scale Blade, which is basically a katana, is the Hailstorm Sword. This basically puts ice and lightning on your blade. Not only does it look incredibly cool, does loads of good damage, it's also great from a status point of view. So this is a very nice weapon, especially if things are weak to magic. You can also assign some of these abilities to shields. We have Barricade Shield, which I believe is a sort of stronger guard. I didn't actually get a chance to test this one out too much. There's also a Healing Circle, which you can place on the ground and then use that to basically give you heal over time. So you have a few shield options. I also didn't get a chance to test out this ability on the dagger, but the dagger itself just looks super cool because it kind of looks like it belongs in Soul Calibur, but you have the Blood Blade ability, but of course it also changes the way that you swipe with the weapon. But then turn your attention to some of the slightly more flashy ones. So if you start as the Blood Wolf, you get the Bastard Sword, and by default it has Thunderbolt attached, which is basically this ability where you can just rain down a bolt of thunder on your enemies, which is incredibly cool, and of course it has pinpoint accuracy, so that's very nice. Another option is Piercing Fang. This one is more so like a thrust attack, but you basically stab forwards and do some good damage. Stormblade is a cool one where you can basically send out like a Hadouken or like a Wind Blast with your blade. One of the ones that I really like is Glint Sword Arc. This basically brings these sort of spirit swords that hover around you, kind of like Noctis in Final Fantasy, where you can sort of bring those swords around you, but either way, when you get close to enemies, they will then home in, and of course, if they're weaker enemies, it will typically dispatch them pretty quickly. We then have Gravitas, which is basically like putting a gravity field at your feet. It has limited use case, at least from my testing so far. It's decent against some weak enemies. It can of course pull them towards you, which can slightly trip them up, so it does have some uses, but it isn't as flashy as some other moves. And then one of my personal favorites is the Carrion Greatsword. This is basically the Spirit Greatsword as I like to describe it. Effectively, you hold on the button and you turn your sword into this massive spirit blade. The longer you hold it, the bigger the blade gets, up to a point. And you can basically use this to, not only does it extend the reach, but of course it does some pretty good damage as well, provided things are of course weak to magic. So that's a look at some of the ones that I of course had a chance to encounter. Again, you'll also find some other ones on like different weapons. So one of the exciting things in the game will just be obtaining different weapons, testing them out, sort of seeing what they can do. As a sort of bonus, I'm going to throw in a few magic spells because some of these come on the other pre-made classes. You have the Glintstone Pebble, where you can basically just fire out this little sort of beam, so to speak, and you then have the Carrion Piercer, where similar way to the Greatsword, the sort of spirit one, instead of slamming it down, you summon it and you basically thrust it forwards, doing some good pierce damage. And then finally, the last badass spell, we got to see this one in the trailer. This is Dragonfire, where you basically summon a big dragon head, it breathes some fire. If you hold it down, it breathes fire for longer. It does of course take basically all your FP, so it is a high cost move, but that is also pretty sweet. So there you have it. There's a look at a few of the cool weapon skills, the sort of Ashes of War in Elden Ring, and a few bonus spells as well. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and keep it locked for plenty more. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to catch more from us, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest uploads. And if you want somewhere to hang out, play games, or chat all things from games to anime, food to fitness, consider joining the HyperX Gaming Discord.